Eitan Fenson, and I apologize, my voice is not what I'd like it to be, but with the aid of the microphone, I think you can hear me. And many of you recognize my name because it's all over emails that I send. And I want to talk about that specifically. We are here today to help raise money for the DVC, and that is an extremely important endeavor. Without that money, we go away, and we don't want to go away. So I want to tell you that we are embarking on a series of these fundraisers. So you're going to hear from me again. You can choose to donate or not, depending on your situation or your proclivity. But we are going to have additional opportunities to donate to the DVC over the next few months. And I wanted to let everybody know that so that you are at least prepared to see the email. And I hope you realize what a tribute to our community the DVC is. The fact that it has been so effective is, it's not me, it's not Casey, it's not Karen. It is a product of the passion and strength of our community, which has been a total inspiration for me. It is the engine that drives me as I work at the DVC. Anyhow, I've already said enough. What I'd like to do now is something I always love to do, which is to introduce Anna Eshoo, our beloved Congresswoman, and who is one of our greatest, if not our greatest supporter. And I would just like to pay tribute to her and to welcome her.
Thank you, Eitan. Isn't he something?
Yeah.
Barney, what you should know is that as we opened the DVC and all the planning and the spreadsheets to see if we could come up with the money and the rent, square footage here is off the charts. And it was Eitan and the team that put all of that together. And then there was a bump in the road for Eitan, health-wise. And he's here this morning with us. He looks great. I think, just thinking of going back full-time to the DVC is what is the best drug for him. It really is. Eitan, thank you. Thank you very much. Stephanie, thank you for opening your home again. Someone said to me, it seems to me that I just saw you. Well, you're right, you did. It was last week. Was it last week?
It was Monday.
Oh, it was just Monday. Well, when you commute across the country, it's like last year. But at any rate, Stephanie, thank you for everything that you're doing. To the entire team, I'm so proud of all of you. This is a special day. For all of us. I was saying to someone earlier that I didn't know whether the cell phone number I had for Barney was the most current one, but it was fairly late at night and I thought, I'm going to send him a text. I knew that he was coming to California and I wanted him to come and be with all of you and meet you and know better what is taking place here. So I told him about it in the text. It wasn't 60 seconds later that he called me back. He doesn't say hello. And he doesn't say goodbye. He said, I'd love to do it. I would love to do it. So let me just say a few things about my friend Barney. To call him friend is really a privilege for me. Barney Frank, I think, is one of the most consequential members of the Congress of the United States. Barney was, and still is, the bulwark in terms of civil rights, in terms of the LGBTQ community. When he would take to the floor and speak to the American people about who he was, who he is, and all of the people in this country that were less than second-class citizens. You couldn't hear a pin drop on the floor of the House. And there were many that took their hankies out when he spoke. The author of the Dodd-Frank legislation. Landmark legislation. He was born in Bayonne, New Jersey, which is, I didn't know that, Barney. I didn't know that. I thought that you were a son of Massachusetts. I'm just sitting here listening. There's something wonderful about his biography. It's titled Barney Frank, the story of America's only left-handed gay Jewish congressman. He was voted the brainiest, the funniest, and the most eloquent congressman by his peers in the House of Representatives. And he continues today, and we miss him every day. But we know that he's with us, wherever he is in the country and whatever he is doing. When we see him, it's in the cloakroom. Open the door and everybody says, "Oh my God, Barney is here. Barney is here." But wherever he is in the country, whenever he's interviewed, you hear the most sophisticated take on what's taking place in our country. The depth and the breadth of his knowledge is nothing short of stunning. I just want to tell you something very quickly. It's two memories that I will cherish all the days of my life, Barney. When we were at the White House, when Bill Clinton was president, there was a celebration of Mother's Day and our work to bring about health care for everyone in our country. And Barney's mother was there, and my mother had traveled across the country. And the two of them were like two peas in a pod. They just loved being together, and I'll never forget the four of us piling in your old car and driving back up to the hill. So that is one great, great memory. And the other one is having attended your wedding. He invited me to his wedding. And I'll always be grateful for that. So I have bragged about all of you to Barney and what this effort is about. Barney, what you may not know is that this is the most civic-minded area, I think, in our entire country. And what the volunteers are doing is second to none. What we are so proud of, Barney, is that under one roof, we have brought together everyone. All of the traditional democratic organizations, the county committee, the clubs, all of that, but also all the new organizations that were born the day after the election. And there is no daylight between Hillary supporters, Bernie supporters, Indivisible, Sister District, Swing Left, the Democrats. We are all together to change the direction of the country that we love so much. We welcome you with open arms. And because of you, $10,000 has been raised today to keep the doors open, to keep the effort going of the Democratic Volunteer Center here in Palo Alto. So we welcome you, we thank you for what you have done for the country, and what you continue to do for the country, and we love you. Welcome, Barney.
Thank you, and thank all of you. Thank all of you. Oh, thank you. I have an arthritic hip, and I was diligently doing the exercises they gave me to fix it, and so vigorously that I pulled a muscle. to be here, and I admire Anna and the work she's done so much, and to have her say that I've been very consequential is a very good idea, and I think it gave me an idea that it looks like I'm not the oldest person here, and maybe but people will remember by next reference, because you can be consequential in a good way or a bad way. Sadly, we have a president who is unfortunately consequential in other ways, but I hope that I differ with him in one very important respect to make the cultural reference. I bring you truth and consequences. For younger people, that was a radio show that is now in a town in New Mexico. You know, there is a Truth and Consequences, New Mexico. I have no idea why they chose that name. But Anna has been very effective, and I'm glad to be here. And I'm glad to be here at the Democratic Victory Center. I spent some time in politics, being both partisan and bipartisan. In the 1970s, when I was in Massachusetts in politics, I supported a Republican named Edward Brooks for the United States Senate twice. He was the only African-American elected between the period of the Civil War, the Reconstruction period. And he was the first African-American senator elected in America by direct vote. He was a champion of housing, by the way, obviously an overwhelmingly important issue there, but he was a staunch supporter of constructing affordable housing. There was once a very nice headline in the Boston Globe that said, "Brooke champions housing for poor in Senate." My sister wrote a letter and said, "Good, put him in the House as well." But I can't remember the last time I felt at all tempted to vote for a Republican, and it's their fault. There is obviously hyper-partisanship today to the point of dysfunctionality. But please reject any of those people, and you obviously know that because you're here as proud partisans. There are two sayings that I wish that have become outdated. One is when people are decrying the partisanship, a plague on both their houses. There was an easy tendency to say, you know, I used to hate it, we all did in school, when a lazy teacher, when there was a dispute, would just blame both sides without trying to find out who was wrong. Let me be very clear. The hyper-partisanship came to America on January 20th, 2009, when Barack Obama was inaugurated. In 2008, Anna was there, led by one of the great leaders in American history, Nancy Pelosi. By the way, three people are at the pinnacle of policy making in America throughout our history. The President, the Majority Leader of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House. And in 230 years of those three positions and the dozens of people who've had them, one's been a woman. That's Nancy, who has been an extraordinarily able speaker. And under her leadership, with Harry Reid in the Senate, we gave George W. Bush a lot of support. And ironically, we were helping fend off the disaster that he had brought on. It was their refusal to regulate the financial industry, overruling our efforts to pass legislation to stop the subprime lending, overruling efforts to put some rules in. And because of that, we had the crisis. And we responded. I was talking, my colleague roommate, Charlie Hopper and Susan are here. They are my hosts for this weekend. And I was telling them my favorite, I'm not a great Bible guy, to be honest with you. Because I think both the Catholic Church and my own religion, Judaism, made a mistake when they translated all the prayers into the vernacular. Because I think they make better sense as kind of poetry that you don't understand. There is one great story, and it's analogous to American politics, and it's the King Solomon story, where the real mother gives up to save the baby. Well, here's the analogy. Government is the baby, and we Democrats are the real defenders and supporters, and the Republicans are the fake mother, and we are at this disadvantage. Because when it comes down to either give in or we'll kill the baby, we tend to give in some. It's because we carry the burden of believing in government. And not caring about government gives them a little more freedom. But we have finally figured out a way, I think, to fight back on that. But we went to George Bush's aid because we didn't want the whole country to be punished. And we gave George Bush in those 2 years where we were in the majority and he was the president. We were very supportive of him. In some areas, not in others. But in some areas to stave off disaster. The day, and by the way, you can read, if you read the memoirs of three of the leading financial regulators under George W. Bush: Sheila Bair at the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation; Ben Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve; Henry Paulson, the Secretary of Treasury. All three give the Democrats credit in that critical year. It was an election year, and we stepped in to make things less bad. In fact, we later got blamed for part of it, and things didn't become perfect because of what we did, but we did our best. Because I was chairman of the committee, I was very prominent, so this is a good deed that did not go unpunished, and we all suffered in 2010. We lost a lot of seats. My majority was down. It's kind of hard to make the argument that you made a disaster less disastrous. When I did toy with the idea of a bumper sticker that would say, "Things would have sucked worse without me." I was dissuaded from doing that. But we did that for Bush, knowing there would be a hit. Then Obama becomes president and the Republicans walk away from him. So they are the ones who brought about. Not only that, by the way, but those Republicans who did cooperate with us in 2008 all got penalized in the elections in 2010. In 2010, Republicans, you remember Mike Castle, Kate Bailey Hutchinson, no great liberal, Robert Bennett from Utah, couldn't even get on the ballot. That scared the hell out of all the reasonable Republicans.
Yeah.
So please do not use this, playing on both the houses. It's very one-sided. If you're interested in my random thoughts here, the other saying that I advise people not to use is, she's so extreme, she's more Catholic than the Pope. Because a lot of bishops these days are more Catholic than the Pope, so that one is lost. They think they are. But party is important. There has never been in the history of the world a self-governing society of any significant number where you didn't have political parties. Not because anybody wanted them, but because they were an actual outgrowth, because otherwise you just have random and personality-dominated factors. And they tend, by the way, there's a left and a right. Sensible people believe in a private sector and a public sector. A private sector to create the wealth, a public sector to regulate it and see it's distributed more fairly. And there's been a kind of one group that sees a bigger role for the public sector and one for the private sector. What's aberrant about the current group is that they don't understand the public sector's role. I mean, you'll see this with this fury against the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They don't just think it's bad policy. For them, it's heresy. Because a great Californian, to some people, in 1981, your former Governor Ronald Reagan, said, government is not the answer to the problem, government is the problem. And it was a rhetorical flourish for him. This group takes it literally. They really take this literally, except in a few areas where they have access to crime for themselves. And this is the problem of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Unlike a lot of government agencies, it has no positive role. There are no programs that it does. There are no benefits. The sole purpose of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which Elizabeth Warren came up with and we enacted, is to protect private citizens from private sector abuse. It is the government being the answer to the problem. It is the government saying to Wells Fargo, to stay regional in my references, that you cannot cheat people this way. And that's why they hate it. It isn't simply the public policy. It's a repudiation of this Reagan doctrine, because it says, no, government is the answer to this one set of problems. And it's very popular. So popular, so that with all of their legislating, they have not moved to repeal it or to amend it. They haven't weakened it. They weakened it by putting Mick Mulvaney in there, who is just shutting it down. But the good news here is that every power that we gave that agency remains fully intact to be used when we get a decent administration back again. So, but the point is, party is very important, and being a Democrat is very important. I would love to go back to the day when I felt free to vote for a Republican or two. But let's start with, I was with the group yesterday called Flip the 14, which I said has I suggested a dash, a hyphenation of the name, because as you know, President Trump, really, you guys make him crazier. He really resents California. Because if we are successful and make the gains in the California congressional delegation that we are going to make and re-elect your leaders here, it's not just going to be good public policy. but it's going to be beating Donald Trump in a battleground that he chose. So I suggested they hyphenate the name as Flip the 14 and flip off Donald Trump. Which is, let's get to the election. And I did a video, there's a young woman who has had me do the video, there we are. I said that this is not just a Democratic Volunteer Center, this is a Democracy Vindication Center. Because we know that there is a majority in this country that disagrees with the vicious and hatred and mean and environment destructive policies of this administration. But the problem is people haven't voted. You know, Richard Nixon and Spiro Agnew claimed to speak for the silent majority until they both got caught. What bothers me, what we have had in part of the left, is not the silent majority, but the whining majority. People who are very vocal about how terrible things are, I don't do anything about it.
Yes.
Or maybe even make it worse, like voting irrelevantly for candidates way out there. So let me start here. I haven't always been as partisan as I am, and I hope not to be. The only way we are going to get the stranglehold broken, or break the stranglehold that the far right has on the Republican Party, is for them to get beaten badly.
Yeah.
Right now, the problem, as Anna knows, is we have colleagues who tell us privately they don't like what they're doing. But they are more afraid of losing in a primary to their own voters than in November. The only way to turn that around is to have them be more afraid of losing in November than in the primary. And that means to get to a less partisan situation, we have to be very partisan. We have to punish the Republicans for their cowardice, those who would stand up and defeat them. And then there are Republicans waiting to come back. Although I see no sign that Arnold is going to return nearly as quickly as he would like to. But that's why this is so important to do it. And it means, obviously, there was some persuading to be done. You'll run into some people who are Trump supporters. By the way, my recommendation, others have made as well, don't talk as much about the Russian investigation. That's out there. Talk about the public policy. Talk about his betrayal of his promises. He said he was going to bring down drug prices. He just announced a plan to bring down drug prices, and what happened was that the stock of all the drug companies shot up because it was so favorable. His notion of how you bring down drug prices for America is to make foreign countries, which do a good job of regulating drug prices, pay more to the drug companies in the hope that they will then, out of the goodness of their hearts, voluntarily reduce prices. He went back on his proposal that people be able to shop outside, to go to Canada for drugs, and the argument. It's interesting, the Republicans, who are very critical of federal safety and health regulations, they would cut way back. But all of a sudden, they become absolute purists with regard to drugs. God forbid Americans should buy drugs in an underdeveloped country like Canada. Where, I have said, when they tell me, well, aren't you afraid of low-quality drugs coming from Canada? The day I read about a bunch of dead Canadians because of this, I will retract my position that Americans should be able to shop there to put competitive pressure on. Not everybody has to go there, but at any rate, he's betrayed them on the drug price. The tax bill, exactly the opposite of trying to bring about more equality. And the financial reform, fortunately, we were blocked, and they got a bill coming up that I wouldn't vote for, but it frankly does much less than they would like to do. The Republicans passed the bill in the House and Anna voted against it, would have repealed almost the whole Dodd-Frank Act. This does much less, so little that the Republican chairman eventually tried to stop it. But at any rate, they are afraid to take it up, but he's done the exact opposite. He was going to be tough on Wall Street. He has given them as much as he could do on his own. So in almost every area where he has made promises to the working people, he has betrayed them. Talk about that. Talk about those things, because that's what's very important. By the way, the health care bill, as you know, and the financial reform bill remain essentially intact, which he wants to do something that even for him is hard. Namely, to talk about how wonderful the economy is, but also complain that we put in place two things that kill the economy. If health care and financial reform were really so devastating to the economy, he wouldn't have an economy to brag about. It's more of a continuation than anything else. But, so you don't waste a lot of time trying to persuade. And certainly if you're going door to door or doing any of that stuff, I don't know if you do. You go door to door. In fact, my staff said, don't go to fight with people. People ask me if I quit because of the rancor, and I was just tired and worn out after 6 years. As far as rancor is concerned, I'll be honest with you, I'm very good at rancor. Rancor was one of my best subjects. And it's easier than constructive work. There's a difference between, just hitting a ball and doing a Rubik's Cube, trying to put stuff together. But don't spend a lot of your time. You go around, you come up with a transport, don't argue with them. One of the things we've got is, if you're in a situation where you have to or you want to use the right arguments about his betrayal of any proposals for economic justice, but we need to turn out our vote. And we don't let them not want to vote. The more you argue with somebody, you might activate them. So if we turn out our vote, there are a couple of things we have to do about that. First of all, I'm glad that Anna mentioned that the Sanders and Clinton people were together. One very important piece of this that I got involved in, there was this big fight over what were called the super delegates. By the way, part of the problem with the terminology, they were not given any more power than anybody else. They shouldn't have been called super delegates. Technically, they are ex officio delegates, meaning that you do one job by virtue of holding another one. It's ex officio, out of your office you become a delegate. Now, they have never been a significant factor. Clearly, they dilute the pure Democratic element, but they have never been a significant factor in any of the presidential choices. In fact, I was a superdelegate by the rules from 1984 through 2012. I never voted. I was busy when they were taking the oath on me. There hasn't been a decisive vote. It's all decided beforehand. But it clearly annoys people, and it is anti-democratic. So, by the way, I think our caucuses instead of primaries, and we're making both of them together. But our friend Debbie Wasserman-Schultz asked me to be chairman of the Rules Committee, which I don't want to do, but I'm good at presiding. I'm a very good presiding officer because I have a very short attention span. I make everybody else comply with that. I think my most memorable comment as chairman of the Rules Committee was, "You won, stop talking." And we had this issue. We were in charge of the issue of the non-elected delegates voting, and we had a compromise between the Clinton and Sanders people. By the way, the strongest advocates for keeping the full voting privileges for these delegates were members of the Congressional Black Caucus who argued with some plausibility that representing communities that are still underrepresented in America, they want to be delegates of the convention, but they didn't want to take it away from some people in their community. Yeah. And that was but even that, they may be, my own view is, let every member of Congress have full floor privileges, whether or not the vote isn't important. But anyway, we came up with a compromise that the Sanders and Clinton people agreed to at the convention. It is now being implemented fully by the Democratic National Committee, by the pro-Clinton chair, Tom Perez, and the pro-Sanders vice chair, our friend Keith Ellison. There is total unity now coming out of this. There is no basis for any of this. And so we really have to help say, look, we have a common enemy right here that we have to work on. And I understand, there are going to be candidates nominated that you won't fully agree with. And I have had the privilege, very few of you here have had it. It's a great feeling to vote for a candidate and know that that's a perfect candidate. And I once voted for an absolutely perfect candidate. By the time I ran for re-election, that wasn't true anymore. When I'm in job, I make a couple of compromises. When I looked around and I decided I was the best candidate in the race, I voted enthusiastically for me anyway. We are now at a point where it's, by the way, even a Democrat, you don't agree with on some issues, you know the single most important vote he or she is going to cast? Speaker. Should Nancy Pelosi be the speaker? Or should it be Kevin McCarthy or somebody to his right? That's so important. And any Republican who's going to vote for the Republicans as speaker and as the committee chairs, then that's so overwhelming. Yeah, we have open primaries and we have plenty of time to fight, but we really need to get people to vote. And that also includes, some of you have friends to the left that voted for Jill Stein or didn't vote. I hope it is clear to everybody now that the consequences of that. I got to tell you, I'm a great fan of comedy, and I like comedy and I like to consume it. And I got my start in being conscious of this in the 50s and 60s with the stand-up comedians, the Porch Belt comedians. And my favorite is Henny Youngman. Some of you know him, but Henny Youngman.
Take my wife, please.
Yes, the shortest joke in history, take my wife, please. But he had an even better wife joke with real relevance. How's your wife? Compared to what? That's the essence of the decision-making process in politics. Compared to what? You fight as hard to get the best possible choices. And then the moment comes when you gotta make a choice and you make the choice. And then the next day you start fighting. So if you didn't like that choice, you have a better set of choices to make the next day. So that's what's important to do. And you all have friends who don't vote. You have relatives who don't vote, and particularly in the midterms, the values of this country are at stake. He's doing serious damage every day. Taking back either or both houses can retard it. Can't turn it around until 2020, but it can retard it substantially. It can stop the starvation of funding for agencies. It can stop him from doing a friendly bad thing. It can certainly prevent him from undoing any more of the good laws we have on the books. So what you're doing is wonderful, and it is a time to be, the more people believe in bipartisanship, the more they ought to be, for now, partisan Democrats, so we can restore that possibility. And the same goes, and I mentioned money. There is only one way to diminish the role of corrupting money in politics, and it's got to be a reversal of Gresham's law. Gresham's law was the economic law back when coins had real value as well as being a currency. Gresham's law said bad money will drive out good. That is, if there was a $10 piece, a gold piece, and somebody made it with less gold than the other guy, the guy with the less gold, that money would dominate because people would take the other $10 piece and use the gold. We have to do the reverse. We have to have good money drive out the bad. We have to spend money to elect people who will then, once they are in office, change the law. That means getting back to a Supreme Court justice, and there are other things you can do, including what little law we have now could be applied, for instance, to the internet and elsewhere. So giving money now, the more you dislike the role of money in politics, the more you ought to give now. Because only if and we don't have to match them dollar for dollar, fortunately, but you can't expect people who are being outspent by an order of magnitude to overcome this. So that's why all of what you're doing is so important. The final thing I would say is this, please remember, things are terrible, but there is hope. And you need both. Some activists make a mistake of thinking the more they describe things as terrible, the more energized people will be. But people need to know two things. One, that things need to be changed, but two, there's a possibility of changing them. You can discourage people, you can talk them out of doing things. Everything that's happened since the November 16 election has been a good omen for us. People have voted Democratic more Democrats have come out, the splits have healed. We have outperformed historic norms. If the votes got, for instance, Arizona, where there was a vacant Senate seat, if in November our candidate, Kirsten Sinema, in the district that the Republicans just held out there, where, who was it? Was it Trent Franks, my non-cousin, who had to resign because he innocently asked one of the people who worked for him if she would mother his child. And he didn't know why people thought that was he held that district, the Republican. If that district voted in the same proportion, Democratic and Republican, in November, and nothing else changed in Arizona, we'd have a new Democratic senator. And there are, every case, things have done better. So keep that up, and it's very important. Even though people are going to win, members look at the size of the majority. These congressional races, it is all connected. So thank you very much for